Hey YouTubers, and welcome back to Tony the Technician channel. And today we're going to be going into the Camaro and we're going to be doing an upgrade to the audio system. So the only thing we have left is we're waiting on the rear end and fuel tank to come in, and then I'll have a video on those. After that, it's just measuring for a drive shaft and getting it installed and getting this thing fired up. But in the meantime, while we're waiting for that, we're going to go ahead and upgrade the audio system. I haven't touched it since I bought the car. It has the standard 4 speakers, 2 to possibly 3 of those speakers operate. And the head unit is an old JVC from 10 to possibly 15 years ago. Not the best. It doesn't have the rear hatch speakers or the kick panel speakers or anything like that. It's just the standard 4 speakers. It's got 4x6s in the dash and 6x9s in the rear sail panels. We're going to be upgrading to a brand that I have a lot of experience with. I used to install a lot of this brand in vehicles, and I've used it in my own personal vehicles as well, and that is Skar Audio. They've been around since about 2012, and I've really enjoyed them. They're a great product for a great price. So as far as speakers, we're going to be running the 4x6s, 6x9s, and an additional 2 6.5-inch speakers in the rear. And then we're going to be amplifying that with a Skar Audio 500-watt 4-channel amp. And then as far as the head unit, I wanted to go with the Alpine CDE 175, but it is sold out everywhere, out of stock, unless you want to buy it for over double the price on Amazon at around $400, which I'm not willing to spend that much. So that really narrowed down my options as far as finding a single DIN head unit in the price range that I wanted with the specs that I wanted, and so that became a little bit more difficult. Did some more research and everything, and ended up finding one that I find to be really interesting. I wanted a name brand one. I didn't want to go with the Amazon special, with one without a name or one that nobody's ever heard of, with ratings that make it look really good, but you get it and it's just you know. So I ended up going with the Kenwood. I'll have a picture posted up in here. I can't exactly remember the part number on it, or the model number. It has great specs at a great price, and it also has a 6-channel preamp output at 5 volts, so that's really good, especially for its price range. So I think it's going to be a great upgrade, especially compared to this JVC that's in there. And then how we're going to be running the speakers, since I'm running 6 speakers instead of the standard 4, and we're running it on a 4-channel amp. So as far as the rear speakers, we're going to have the 6x9s going to channel 1 running at 2 ohms. And then channel 2, we're going to have the rear 6.5-inch speakers running to channel 2 at 2 ohms. And then the 2 front speakers, the 4x6s, will run to channels 3 and 4 at 4 ohms. And that is how Skar Audio recommends running 6 speakers on their 4-channel amp, so that's how we're going to be doing it. I won't be using any of the pre-existing speaker wires or anything like that. I'm going to run brand new speaker wiring for all the speakers. I have to find a spot in the rear seat delete box that I've made where I like the 6.5-inch speakers mounted. Got to find a good mounting spot for that, as well as the amplifier. I want to keep it clean and organized, so we're going to go ahead and figure that out. But as far as installing the 4x6s in the dash and 6x9s in the sail panels, I'll show you how to remove the dash and the sail panels if you don't already know. And then we'll go ahead and get that installed, as well as the wiring, and then we'll get the head unit installed. And I will also be sharing a clip with you guys, a before clip of the audio on the 2 or 3 speakers that I have in here on the old JVC head unit, and then we'll compare it to the 6 speakers that are going to be amplified on the new Kenwood head unit. So hopefully I've posted up pictures of the speakers, amplifier, and head unit, and I will also have these products linked down below. I'll try and find the best pricing as possible if you guys are interested in doing any of these upgrades yourself as well. So other than that, let's go ahead and dig right into this, and I hope you guys enjoy. So first thing you're going to do is we're going to be removing the sail panels in the rear and the dash. So in order to remove the sail panels, I do suggest if you have an underhood light, you use that inside the car. It keeps you from having to hold a flashlight or anything like that if you're working in dim lit areas. So as far as the rear sail panels, all you're going to do is go ahead and remove this Phillips head up here at the top, and then you're just going to simply slide it up, and it should come right off. So there we go. And now we have access to the rear speakers. So I actually have some MTX speakers in the rear. They've replaced the stock 6x9s with an adapter plate and some MTX speakers. So that'd be alright if they all worked, but they don't. So we'll go ahead and get the other sail panel off, but that is how you remove the rear sail panel. Very simple. Now we'll go ahead and move on to the dash. As far as the dash goes, it's pretty simple as well. So up underneath the front lip, you're not going to be looking at these in the middle of the dash. You're going to be looking at the ones that are right along the edge right here. So you got one here, one right above my tack, and then same thing underneath the speedometer as well. And then after those are removed, up in here you will have a few that run across the front of your defrost vent. So just make sure you don't drop them down in here. Use a magnet or a magnetic screwdriver as you remove them to make sure you don't drop them down in the defrost vent. And then this will simply come out. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. I may have to remove my tack or at least loosen it up in order to get this out, but it is also a simple removal on that. So now we have the dash out, which was simply just the screws up front. Then you may have some that connect here at the defrost, and we have MTXs in the rear and stock speakers in the front. And then when I looked at this speaker, I saw the connector but no wiring, and then I dug my hand down in here and found the connector. So that could be a very good possible reason as to why one of the speakers does not work. So I'm gonna go ahead and get this plugged in, and then we'll do a sound test of the old JVC head unit with the stock front speakers and the MTX rear speakers. And I'll have the camera and microphone sitting right about here directly in the middle of the vehicle in order to kind of capture the overall sound of it. And I'll be using the same soundtrack for both before and after the installation of the new speakers. Everything's set to 0. There's no bass, treble, everything's set to 0. So let's go ahead and set this at 15, and then I'll start playing the audio and I'll turn it up from there. Maybe then we'll be better off. I'm hoping that it comes, but it never does. I just wanna be the man my dad ever was. Hear my music, it's all soul. Just got new grills and they all go. So I got that beef with the po-po. Cheering, no interceptions, no interference. I'm on an A-team, no Ed Sheeran. I'm headed for the stage now, they clearing all the bad women in the building, man. There's bad women in. One shot, two shots, I don't really know if I'm counting. This life, and I'm thankful. Praying I got, yo, everything that we've been through. Ain't nobody shutting it down. Buzzing. You got one, I got a dozen. If she's taking. Alright, so that's it at level 15, 30, and 40. Not terrible, especially since I got this speaker up here plugged back in. But the stock speakers definitely aren't anything special. We'll go ahead and install the new stuff, or get to installing it, and see how it sounds afterwards. To remove the front speakers, I mean, it could vary depending on if yours has been swapped out or not. The equipment could be different, but mine consisted of 2 Phillips head screws at the bottom part of the dash down here. This one here just holds in the ducting for the defrost, and that will, there's really 2 ways to remove this speaker. You have the speaker that sits in this metal mount, so you can remove the mount and the speaker as one unit, or you can just remove the fasteners inside of the mount here, the 4 fasteners, and you can remove the speaker from this mount. I'm going to take the entire mount out just to clean it up, and then I'll remove the 4 screws here to remove the speaker from the mount. But it'll be 2 Phillips heads here underneath the dash, real easy to access, and then these back here, as well as these fasteners, are all 7mm. That's as far as mine. Could be different for yours. I'm going to go ahead and mount these new ones in here. Shouldn't be too difficult. Now these are quite a bit deeper than the older ones, so they do make contact with part of the blower system, but not enough to where it'll hinder anything. It'll basically just be touching it. If I need to, I can throw a couple washers in here, space the speaker up maybe 1/8 of an inch or so. Not a huge deal, not really any modification necessary or anything like that, but really big difference. I did notice the old speakers are made in Japan, which I did not know. So other than that, I'll just quickly show you everything that I have here. So I have the Kenwood head unit, which is going to be the KDC-X304. And then I have basically my power, ground, remote, another set of RCAs, all that good stuff in here. The 4x6s that will be going up front. So they are the TX46. Then we have the 6.5s here, which are the TX65s. Nice little speakers. They do have a model level like below this, and then they also have their insane speaker line as well. These are the 6x9s that we will be installing, and these are the TX69s. And then here's the Skar Audio 500 watt 4-channel amp that we'll be running, RP-75.4 AB. We'll be running all 6 speakers off of this amplifier here. And the 6x9s and 6.5s do come with grill covers as well. We won't be using the 6x9 ones, but we will be using the 6.5s when I mount them in the box in the rear of the vehicle. So bear with me through this. I'm going to try and explain this as best as possible. So I got the speakers mounted into the mounts and those are ready to go in. And then as far as the wiring, I've got everything soldered and ran for the most part. As far as the front, I got the front right speaker, front left speaker, and then here's the remote wire and the 4 RCAs, which I'm going to actually drop down through the top of the dash straight down to the stereo, and then it comes down. I gotta tuck it back behind all of this yet. I wanted to show you guys how I'm running it. You can, you know, run it from here. If you're mounting your amp in the back, you can run it through your center console. I have a lot of wiring in my center console already, and my shifter is a custom mount, so it's a real pain to run anything else through here. So I'm avoiding that, and I'm going around and staying out of the way of all of that. So all of the wiring is going to come down. It's the 4 RCAs, the remote wire, and the speaker wires, and I have them labeled rear, front, and then right front and left front. It's just going to come down, and then I'll run it underneath the carpet, obviously. And then it'll come back into the rear seat delete box, and the amp will be mounted right here on the front. Sorry, it's kind of hard to see back here, but all the wiring is just kind of laid back here right now. That's basically how I'm going to run it. And then after I get all that done, as far as getting these front speakers back in, then I'll start working on the head unit, installing it, and then we'll move into the back as far as hooking up the amp and hooking up all 4 speakers and figuring out where in the rear seat delete I want to mount the new 6.5-inch speakers. So we got the front right speaker in. Here you can see it's mounted. All the wiring I kind of got zip tied and pulled together. Got the lengths correct and checked those. Got it pulled down to the radio. I got a lot of stuff out right now. I got the dash out, or the dash off, the speedometer cover off, my custom carbon fiber plate, the center console off. I got the radio out. Keep in mind, if you're going to run these 4x6s in the 3rd gen Camaro, you're going to have to do some customization, because the magnet and speaker is too tall for the driver's side. Luckily, I'm not running the stock speedometers or any of the gauges. I have my own on top, laid over top. So if you're running a 3rd gen Camaro and you're using stock gauges and you're using the AC or heater, this is not going to work for you unless you figure something else out. I cut into this blower vent here and the back of the speedometer. I'm going to come in here with my Dremel with a little grinding wheel and clean all this up. But if I didn't, it would not sit down in here. It would sit up like this. And now, just by removing the plastic, it didn't alter the speedometer or anything. It should, all the gauges should still work. You know, I didn't affect that. It's just the housing that the gauges sit in that I had to cut open, and it gave me just enough clearance to get this to sit down in there correctly. So this side did take some modification, where that one just touches the blower vent that goes over, or some of the piping I should say. So keep that in mind. But now I have to reassemble my dash and all of that good stuff. So yeah. And then that, we'll get moving right along. I've soldered here the rear 6.5-inch speaker wires that will run from the amp to the speakers in the box. This is the kit that I use from Capri. If you guys are interested in any of the tools or anything, I'll have a link down below as far as tools that I suggest. I still have to install the 6x9s. Basically what I've been doing, Got the head unit out, and what we have here is the constant 12 volt for the yellow. That'll go to the, I'll show you the pigtail for the Kenwood. They actually don't have an illumination, which would be the orange and white wire. The Kenwoods, I guess the new ones don't have that, so it's just literally my remote wire that will go to my amp, which is right here. The RCAs, which will plug into the back of the head unit, and it'll be 12 volt constant and ground. That's it. All of these are just speaker wires, so I have those heat shrink together. And then these are for the mute for the telephone and steering wheel controls, which I don't need. So it's literally just these 4 wires and the RCAs. As far as the head unit side, I did the same thing with the speaker wires. Every single speaker wire, the blue wire, the illumination wire, they all have individual heat shrinks on them, and then I heat shrink them together. And the only thing we'll be using is the power ground, illumination, remote. But the head unit install should be extremely easy. And then as far as the rear of the vehicle, I'll post up some pictures of the walkthrough. I made a little template up out of paper for the size of the speakers, and then I cut out the holes and mounted the amp. I have the RCAs running through a hole right there. I have the bass knob control right there. Mounted it nice and cleanly. That amp literally fits perfectly on the front of this box. And then back here we just, I kind of had the wires halfway routed. These are for the front speakers. I still had to drill a hole in this side of the box in order to come out to plug in all of the cables and wires for that side. But as far as this side's completely done, and the 6x5s are mounted. The wiring that I showed you earlier out here, that is going to be speakers wires for the 6.5-inch speakers, and then after that it's literally just doing the rear 6x9s and getting the power ground and everything ran to the battery in the trunk. I'm going to do my best to explain this to you. I didn't include showing me running all the wiring or soldering everything, just because that would make this video even longer. So like I said in the beginning of this video, we have the 6.5-inch speakers going to one channel and the 6x9 speakers in the rear going to one channel, and then the front 4x6s are running to channels 3 and 4. So here we have our simple ground, which just runs straight back to a fastener right here. The remote wire, which runs up to the head unit and runs to the blue and white wire on the wiring harness. Then you have the thicker blue gauge wire, which is the power cable. This, for mine, runs to the trunk since I have a rear mounted battery. If yours is under the hood, obviously you're going to run this blue cable up to the front to your positive battery post. Channel 1. This is both the left and the right 6.5-inch speaker, so both of these speakers are running off of channel 1. Channel 2 here is going to be the 6x9, so both positives from the 6x9s and negatives are running to channel 2 here. And then the bottom row, which you can't really see, is channels 3 and 4, which has the left front speaker and the left right speaker. So these 4, or the 6.5-inch speakers, and the 6x9s are running at 2 ohms because they're ran in parallel, which just means that instead of the wires connecting from series from speaker to speaker, they run parallel and both run to the same location. That brings their standard 4 ohm of impedance down to 2 ohms, allowing more power from the amp to flow to the speakers, and that is how Skar recommends running 6 speakers on their 4-channel amp. And then in the back we have the power cable. Here's my battery mounted in the trunk, and there is our 60 amp fuse, which is recommended for this size of amp. And then I got some paneling off here because I'm doing some work, but other than that, that's it as far as the install. Now we are ready to put the head unit in. The head unit is now ready to go in. Now I do suggest, if you're doing this, you can use butt connectors, and of course you can wrap the wires together and wrap electrical tape around them, or you can use twist tie connectors. You can do a whole lot of things like you normally see in these 3rd gens. The best connection would be to solder them and heat shrink them, and that's what I went ahead and did here. It's just a stronger, better connection. As far as the wires, once again, it's just the yellow 12-volt constant, the red, which is battery, black ground, and then my blue and white to my blue remote wire. And that's it as far as the wiring. The speakers are all done on the amp back here. And then the only other thing we'll be plugging into the back of the unit is the antenna, the microphone if your radio has one, and then the RCAs. So very, very simple. That's it. And I do suggest leaving this kind of like this while you plug in the head unit. Make sure everything's working first before you go reassembling everything and then having to tear it all back apart. So just take your time, and it's easy. If you're using speakers without the amp, literally just match up the colors. It's very simple. It doesn't get much easier than that. Go ahead and get the 6x9s installed, and then we'll be ready to throw the head unit in and test it all. So we got everything hooked up. I'm about to play the same song, same track and everything on the new setup. Now keep in mind, all the settings on the head unit are at 0. The amp is absolutely all the way turned down. So it's going to be, it's going to sound better, but it's not going to be like tuned or anything like that. So I'm going to do that next, and then we'll play that and see if there's a big difference. I'll probably be able to pick it up easily. I'm not sure how it will transfer to the video as far as the audio, but we're going to give it a shot, and I really hope you guys enjoy. So I'm going to start the song a little bit further into the track, and I'll kind of point you up here towards the dash, and then I'll allow you to listen more, since the speakers, the microphone's pointed to the front of the camera, so I'll allow you guys to kind of hear all of that. So we'll start out here in the middle.
It never does. I just wanna be the man my dad never was.
Volume 20.
Music is so just got new grills and they all go. So I got that beef with the po-po. They don't like my style, no. I don't really give a damn. I keep steering, switch gears, and the fans just keep cheering. No interceptions, no interference. I'm on the A-team, no Ed Sheeran. I'm headed for the stage now. They clearing all the bad women in the building, man. There's bad women in the building. Let's get it started tonight. This one's on me, let's go downtown tonight. One shot, 2 shots, I don't really know if I'm counting right. We drink it down, so we can live it up. Why? Cause you never know what tomorrow brings in this crazy life. This life, this life, this life, this life. And I'm grateful, even when they say I'm crazy to live in this life, this life, this life, this life. So let's break down everything that we've been through.
Alright, so that's it as far as the new speakers and everything. You guys might have saw the subwoofers back here. Those I just decided to get while I was on vacation, so they showed up. I just kind of mocking that up. Nothing's hooked up, none of that's hooked up or anything. It's just the 6 speakers that we installed in the video. But I will have another video on installing these 3 subwoofers and the amp and everything along with these amplified speakers. So I really hope you guys enjoy this video, and go ahead and check out that video if you guys are interested. But now I'm going to go ahead and tune the speakers, and we're going to see what they sound like on video. I know I'll be able to tell a difference, but hopefully you guys will be able to as well. So let me go ahead and get that done. Also, if you guys want a video on how to tune this by ear, now really you should go get it professionally done, or if you have an oscilloscope or a tool that actually picks up distortion and everything, you could do it yourself. But I'm not going to go out and drop $200 to $1,000 in order to use a tool. It's very simple. I've been doing this for years, and even though I haven't done it in a while, literally you're just listening for distortion, and as long as you know what that sounds like, you can get a pretty good idea on how to tune it and keep the sub and amp in a safe setting to where you're not going to do any damage. But I'm going to go ahead and do this, get that taken care of, and then we'll take a listen to it. Let's go ahead and try this again. I just realized that I recorded this entire tuned portion of the system and wasn't even recording it, so we're going to go ahead and try it again. So let's go ahead and get into this. So the amp is tuned, the head unit and all of that is set at what I want, and I have my max volume set and everything. So we'll go ahead and take a look. Hopefully you guys can tell a difference. It is so much clearer, a lot more mid, bass, I mean all of it. Really good upgrade. So
give a damn, I keep steering. Switch gears and the fans just keep cheering. No interceptions, no interference. I'm on an 18, no Ed Sheeran. I'm headed for the stage now, they clearing. All the bad women in the building, man. There's bad women in the building. Let's get it started tonight. This one's on me. Let's go downtown tonight. One shot, two shots. I don't really know if I'm counting right. We drink it down so we can live it up. Why? Cause you never know what tomorrow brings in this crazy life. This life, this life, this life, this life. And I'm thankful, even when they say I'm crazy for living. This life, this life, this life, this life. So let's drink to everything that we can do.
So once again, a huge difference. Very happy with this setup. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, anything like that, feel free to drop it down below. Let's go ahead and discuss all of this and close out the video. So that's it as far as the install of the Skar audio speakers and amplifier. This 500 watt amplifier, 4x6s, 6x9s, and 6.5-inch speakers, and the new Kenwood KDC-X304. Really enjoy it. I think it's fantastic. It sounds so much better. It's got good bass, good trebles, good mids, all around way better than before, especially since they're amplified. And I think it's tuned pretty well. I'll do some fine-tune adjusting, and then once we get the subs installed, I'll have to tune that as well, so stay tuned for that video. But other than that, I really hope you guys enjoyed. If you guys have any questions or comments or concerns, anything like that, please feel free to drop a comment down below. I'll do my best to answer it for you guys. But definitely better through the auxiliary port and obviously CD and stuff like that compared to Bluetooth. Bluetooth, you know, the volume just isn't there, and sometimes the quality is diminished. So not best to test on that or tune on that unless that's specifically what you're going to be listening to. You want to tune on whatever you're going to be listening to the most. So other than that, if you guys enjoyed, please make sure to hit that thumbs up, leave a comment down below of your guys' thoughts, and as always, subscribe if you're not a subscriber. See you guys next time.